We're talking about the professional who needs their authority to be understood instantly.
Right. Not something you have to spend the first 20 minutes of a meeting trying to establish.
Exactly. This isn't about social acceptance or just looking nice. Our mission today is all about leveraging your appearance as a really robust execution strategy.
I think that's the key word, strategy. We're looking at how you present yourself as a critical part of high-stakes performance. It belongs in the playbook right next to, mergers and policy memos.
Yeah, we're moving way past generic style advice.
Oh, completely. We're digging into a specific strategy we're calling formality over cute.
I love that framing, formality over cute, because it really gets to this paradox you see at the absolute top of power structures. Why is it that the most powerful jobs, I'm talking presidents, Supreme Court justices, CEOs of massive tech companies, why do they seem to require the fewest trivial decisions? They're always so uniform.
Because at that level, personal expression and visual interpretation are a kind of tax. They just are. They take up cognitive overhead for the person wearing the clothes, and they invite all this noise and interpretation from everyone else in the room.
Right.
So our mission is to distill the lessons from people in exactly those roles. We're looking at sources covering presidents, justices, tech CEOs, and showing you specifically how routine and intentional signaling protect your most valuable asset.
Which is your attention.
Your attention. These strategies, they help neutralize bias, and they encode your authority before you even say a word.
That's the core of this deep dive. We're going to show you how these leaders use a deliberate, structured uniform, an authority uniform, to shield their focus. So let's start with this first big idea, which we're calling the strategy of deletion, routinizing authority. Okay, so our first stop is Washington, D.C. We're in the West Wing. It's around 2012, and journalist Michael Lewis is profiling President Barack Obama.
Right. And Lewis was apparently really struck by the atmosphere. You'd think it would just be utter chaos,
Total, permanent urgency. Troop movements, disaster responses, calls with world leaders, just constant crisis.
And all of that was happening, of course. But Lewis saw something else underneath it all. A kind of comforting, almost boring daily system. A routine that existed in the middle of all that pressure.
And that routine wasn't just for show, was it? It wasn't about ceremony.
No, not at all. It was fundamentally about protecting Obama's attention.
Yeah.
Treating it like a limited, scarce resource. Something that could be easily contaminated.
Like classified material.
Exactly. The sources we're looking at keep pointing out that the tiny decisions, what to eat, what to wear, which low-priority email to hit first, they don't announce themselves as dangerous.
No, they just nibble away at your sharpness.
They nibble away. It's like an accumulating debt on your cognitive resources over the course of a day.
And Lewis saw this deletion strategy most clearly in the wardrobe. I mean, yes, Obama might wear his Under Armour high tops on the basketball court.
Sure, in a different context.
But in the West Wing, in that serious environment, the wardrobe just narrowed aggressively, almost mathematically, to a uniform.
The blue or gray suits.
Just blue or gray suits. That's it, nothing else.
And the sources confirmed this wasn't an aesthetic choice. When he was asked about this, his rationale was pure, unadulterated strategy.
He said it himself. He didn't want to spend decision-making energy on clothes or food because he had, and this is the direct quote, too many other decisions to make.
That quote is everything. It's the pivot point. It turns what could be a simple observation about a president's suit into this profound lesson in leadership.
He wasn't just choosing simplicity for, comfort. He was following a strategic mandate.
A mandate he gave himself. You need to focus your decision-making energy. You need to routinize yourself.
And that's such a crucial insight for anyone in a high-stakes job. So many of us, successful but totally overwhelmed people, we treat getting dressed like a daily creative project.
We think the variation's a sign of personality or freedom.
Right. And Obama realized that daily creativity on trivia is actually a tax. It's a daily tax on your most important functions.
It forces you to have a debate with yourself. Is this color too much? Is this too casual for that meeting? Do I look too young in this? He deleted the entire question.
The wardrobe wasn't there to express his personality?
No, its sole function was to communicate a role.
Yeah.
Steady, serious, official, end of story.
So the key moment isn't choosing between a blue suit and a gray suit. It's the decision made once to establish formality as the default.
Yes, the consistency of that choice acts as a buffer. It ensures his brain stays fully locked on policy and strategy, not constantly curating how the job is perceived.
Which brings us right to our first principle here, reducing decision friction and noise.
Exactly. And this whole idea is often discussed under the name decision fatigue.
Right, the concept that making a lot of small choices can actually degrade the quality of your later, more important choices. But we need to be, intellectually honest here about the science.
We do. The classic ego depletion research, the original academic model that suggested willpower, is like a single gas tank that just gets used up, that's been heavily debated.
Yeah, the replication crisis in psychology really hit those studies hard. A lot of large-scale efforts couldn't consistently reproduce the original findings.
Correct. There were some methodological issues, and it's hard to measure a finite resource in the brain. But, and this is a huge, but for our purposes, the practical takeaway for a professional is still incredibly powerful.
Okay, so explain that. If the underlying science is debated, why should a high-stakes professional still care about choosing between a blue and a gray suit?
Because the subjective reality for executives holds true, even if we can't prove a single universal energy drain in the prefrontal cortex. The practical result of all that cognitive overhead is undeniable.
It's friction.
It's friction. Every trivial choice you make introduces a moment of psychological friction. When you eliminate 10 of those little negotiations with yourself in the morning clothes, breakfast, which route to take to work, you free up mental bandwidth.
So it's not that your willpower is literally depleted, it's that your attention is reserved.
Exactly. Less daily drag means a cleaner mind for the genuinely complex, new problems that require real cognitive horsepower.
And making formality the default, it's not just about saving time. It's like you're building a firewall around your attention.
That's a great way to put it. And think about what that does to the room. When you walk in dressed cute, or in a way that's designed to attract attention.
The room immediately starts trying to interpret you.
Yes. They spend the first 30 seconds deciding, what's the vibe here? Is this person fashionable? What mood are they in? They're negotiating the relationship before they get to the function.
Whereas formality just cuts through that.
It pulls attention directly to the function, to the agenda. It's a clean visual signal that says, we are in official mode. This is about business, not personality. It sets the expectation of competence before you even start talking.
That shift from interpretation to function is a massive win for authority. But you're saying the shift isn't just external.
No, and this is principle 2. It's also a critical internal shift. Behavioral scientists call this enclothed cognition.
Enclothed cognition. Okay, break that down for us.
It's the idea that the clothes we wear can actually affect our cognitive performance. It's not just about what the clothes look like, it's about what the clothing symbolizes. And this is crucial, how it feels to wear it. That combination can influence how you think.
Can you give us a concrete example?
Absolutely. There's a famous study where researchers tested people on an attention-related task. One group wore their normal, casual clothes. Another group was given a white lab coat to wear, which we all associate with science, diligence, attention to detail.
Sir, a doctor's coat.
Exactly. But then a third group wore the exact same white coat, but they were told it was a painter's smock.
So same physical object, but a completely different symbol. A doctor's coat means precision. A painter's smock means creativity, maybe messiness.
Precisely. And the results were striking. The group who thought they were wearing a doctor's coat performed significantly better on the attention tasks than both the casual group and the painter's coat group.
Wow.
Their brains were literally priming themselves based on the social role they associated with the clothes. So when you put on a highly structured, formal outfit, you are sending an instant message inward. I am in executive mode.
It's a psychological prompt for yourself. You're physically reinforcing the mental state you need for your hardest work.
You're choosing a mental shortcut for you and for everyone else that leads directly to seriousness, clarity, and competence. You are deleting roadblocks for your audience and flipping an internal switch for yourself.
So the big takeaway here is really sharp. Cute is a social strategy. It's about likability. Formal is an execution strategy. It's about authority and focus.
It's about deleting the unnecessary so you can afford to focus on the truly high-stakes decisions.
Okay, so let's move from that strategy of deletion to a strategy of pure intention. This brings us to section 2. Signal discipline encoding your power.
I love this transition because if President Obama deleted trivial decisions, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was operating in an even stricter formal system, she used that system to encode her defiance.
Yeah, this is such a great counterpoint. We're shifting from the executive branch to the judicial to the Supreme Court, a system that is built, explicitly designed to erase individual personality.
Completely. The iconic black robe, that's the whole point of it. It signals that the institution is far bigger than the individual. It's designed for maximum seriousness and minimal variation.
It basically reduces the justices to these anonymous figures of the law. But RBG, she refused to accept total erasure as the price you pay for authority.
No, she used the rules of formality so precisely that she managed to create expressive freedom inside the system, and she did it primarily with her distinctive collars or jabots that she wore over the robe.
And the origin of that was actually just practical, right?
Pure pragmatism, according to the sources. Ginsburg herself said that the standard judicial robe was really designed for men. It naturally frames a shirt and tie.
There's a space for it.
There's a space for it. So when she and Justice Sandra Day O'Connor were on the court, they saw this visual vacuum. They just felt it made sense to add something that was, more typical for a woman to wear, to soften that stark, traditionally masculine line.
So what starts as a pragmatic adjustment then evolves into something so much more systematic.
It really does. Court reporters, the public, they started noticing patterns. Specific collars became associated with specific types of judicial decisions.
And that's where the discipline comes in. It's not just an accessory anymore.
It becomes a formalized system of communication. The most famous example, of course, is the one that became known as her dissent collar.
Right, this dark, kind of textured, almost armored-looking piece.
Exactly, and she wore it exclusively on days when she was set to issue a major dissent against the court's majority opinion.
It's incredible. It's a visible signal of her disagreement, a literal headline for her judicial stance that she wore hours, maybe even days before the written dissent was actually released.
The institution demanded a certain kind of silence, but her look just instantly communicated her position.
And she never treated it like, a cute little fashion choice.
Never. She treated it as a professional semantic tool. She confirmed it herself in a 2014 interview where she just said it plainly, "This is my dissenting collar. It's fitting for dissent."
She turned a piece of fabric into a system of controlled, preemptive communication.
Which leads us directly to Principle 3, symbol discipline. Formality isn't just about the fabric or the fit. It's about choosing symbols and then repeating them until they carry a clear, unmistakable meaning.
It's like if cute is asking for affection and attractive is asking for attention, formal is asking for interpretation.
But only on your very specific terms.
So how did the collars work as a system? What were the rules of this visual code that made them feel authoritative and not just decorative?
Well, they worked because they did three critical things at once, all tied into this idea of formality. First, they respected the uniform.
Yeah, she wasn't breaking the rules.
She never broke the court's visual seriousness. She wasn't showing up in a bright pink boa. She affirmed the institution's authority while signaling her own stance within it. She was speaking the visual language of the court, just with her own accents.
And the second point, consistency. That seems key.
It's everything. Consistency is what turns a detail into a brand. Second, they were deeply consistent. A one-off accessory is just decoration. That reads as cute or novel.
But a repeated code.
A repeated code trains the audience to look for the signal that becomes part of your identity. The repetition proved it was intentional, not accidental. In fact, many sources confirm she also had a majority opinion collar.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, a much simpler, softer, sometimes lacy white one. She'd wear that on days she was delivering the court's main opinion. It showed the system worked for agreement, not just for defiance.
That detail is so important. It proves it was a system for encoding authority, not just a system for defiance. Okay, and the third point.
The third and most critical point is that they were fundamentally meaning-bearing. Whether it was the dissent collar or the majority collar, these pieces had a purpose. They had an assigned, known function.
And that's the move most people miss. They think the opposite of cute is cold.
It's not. The opposite of cute is clear. When you choose formality, you're choosing a small, reliable set of signals that consistently point back to competence, authority, and this is the big one, intent. You make it almost impossible for the room to misread you.
The application for you, the listener, is so powerful here. Don't just decorate your presence, encode it. Use one small, repeatable, formal signal to communicate a specific intent. It lets you speak with authority inside the constraints of your organization. Okay, let's pivot now from that internal focus and signaling to the huge external challenge of, well, friction in high-stakes rooms. This is section 3, neutralizing bias outranking the stereotype.
Right. We're looking at how formality can be a protective strategy against that immediate, often unfair judgment.
And to do that, we're leaving government and heading into the incredibly competitive and frankly bias-rich world of Silicon Valley.
We're looking at CEO Eileen Carey, the co-founder of Glassbreakers around 2017. And her problem wasn't the quality of her product. It was about how fast she was being filtered and categorized in business meetings before she even got a chance to speak.
And the sources detail some just incredibly direct, almost brutal feedback she got.
Yeah. She was young, she was naturally blonde, highly polished, and those visual signals were actively working against your credibility in that specific environment.
The specific advice she got was what?
One piece of advice that gets cited a lot came from a VC contact. And he told her, just point blank, that investors would be more comfortable dealing with a brunette than a blonde.
Wow.
Yeah. And the implication is just brutal. It wasn't about subjective preference. It was about the speed at which these VC rooms assign credibility and competence. The reality is, if a room holds a stereotype, they will negotiate your credibility before you even start your pitch.
So Carey made this dramatic strategic trade. It's almost like changing your corporate branding mid-launch.
Totally. She dyed her naturally blonde hair darker. She swapped her contact lenses for glasses. She consciously stopped wearing high heels and moved entirely toward this gender-neutral, structured, decision-ready kind of clothing.
And she framed this as a cold strategic calculation.
A research-informed strategy. She was changing the cues she believed were shaping her initial perception, just trying to improve the odds that she'd be taken seriously as a tech leader, not as a novelty or an object of attention. She was trading cute for clear and attractive for authoritative.
It's an acknowledgement that you can't always wait for the world to become fair. Sometimes you have to use the tactics that work right now.
Exactly. And we really need to dig into the research that underpins that trade-off, because it validates a serious problem a lot of high-achieving people face, especially women in male-dominated fields.
Right. There's this cruel twist around professional attractiveness.
There is. It's a classic finding, sometimes called the beauty is beastly effect. And what the research found was that while being more physically attractive consistently benefited men professionally,
It could actually become a disadvantage for women.
a disadvantage for women specifically when they were applying for or holding managerial or authoritative roles.
So if the job requires leadership, command, authority, being perceived as highly attractive can undermine the perception of competence.
It can. When the job demands authority, cues that invite the room to evaluate you as an object, a novelty, or a social focus can undermine the signal of competence. The room gets distracted by the wrong data.
And this extends to something as seemingly neutral as hair color.
It's astonishingly specific. Research in many Western cultures suggests that blondes are often associated with being attractive, maybe more social, but also less competent or serious.
While brunettes are perceived as more studious and competent,
Consistently. Carey's strategic decision was to opt out of a visual cue that was costing her perceived competence, even though those stereotypes are totally toxic and unfair. You don't have to agree with them, but you have to decide if you're willing to pay that tax in a high-stakes room where every second of credibility counts.
and this isn't just a Silicon Valley thing, it's not new. We see the exact same strategic calculation being made decades earlier.
Decades. By Dame Stephanie Steve Shirley in 1960s London. Her goal was just survival. She needed to win work for her pioneering software company.
Freelance programmers. And she was trying to get contracts in the 1960s tech industry, which was...
Almost exclusively male and deeply conservative. She was just trying to get her foot in the door, but the letters she was signing Stephanie were met with silence, rejection, condescension.
The reader's brain just made an immediate negative assumption based on her name.
So she made this incredible tactical choice. She started signing her business letters, Steve. Her quote about it is amazing. She did it to get through the door, be shaking hands before anyone realized that he was a she.
It's just so pragmatic. It cuts through all the social nonsense. She wasn't trying to lead a movement. She's trying to land a contract.
And this was not low-stakes work. Her company was groundbreaking. It pioneered flexible remote work for women who had to leave their careers. And they worked on incredibly high-stakes projects.
Including the software for the Concorde's black box.
The flight recorder. And nobody, especially not in the 1960s aerospace industry, gives that kind of critical work to someone they perceive as a cute novice.
Her story is the cleanest possible demonstration of Principle 4, formality as a credibility lever. She understood that the very first reading of her, whether it was her name or her appearance, was symbolic. She had to control that symbol.
That's the synthesis between Carrie and Shirley. Cute optimizes for being liked. I'm pleasant. Formal optimizes for being trusted. I'm responsible.
And in business, trust is infinitely more valuable. Trust buys you the uninterrupted speaking time you need.
Right. Formality reduces the surface area for stereotyping. It forces the room to engage with your substance first. The message from both of these stories is so clear. Strategy doesn't wait for fairness.
If your look invites a stereotype, your actual work has to fight twice as hard to overcome that first impression. You have to intentionally borrow the professional default formality to make sure your substance lands cleanly. Okay, let's move on to section 4, situational intelligence and control. This is all about how the most authoritative figures know when to abandon their personal uniform and adopt the institutional one.
And how they use props to manage the perception of their availability. We'll start with subsection A, matching the stakes, and Mark Zuckerberg is the perfect case study here.
For years, his uniform, the gray t-shirt, the hoodie, it was a brand logo. In Silicon Valley, it signaled focus and attention conservation.
It was his version of Obama's suit. Wearing the same thing frees you up from trivial decisions.
And that casual uniform worked perfectly in its natural habitat, the tech campus, where status is assigned to the engineer who cares least about appearance. But the stakes changed dramatically.
April 10th, 2018. He has to testify before the U.S. Congress about the Cambridge Analytica scandal. And this was part political, part moral, part reputational theater.
And the visual change was not subtle.
It was immediate and absolutely mandatory. The hoodie disappeared. He wore a blue suit, a white shirt, a tie, the quintessential uniform of deference, accountability, and seriousness.
It really was like a costume choice. I remember analysts at the time saying the fit was a bit off, the tie wasn't perfect, like he was reluctantly conforming.
But the strategic effect was unmistakable. He was signaling that he understood the rules and the gravity of that specific room. He was speaking the institutional visual language of Congress.
And that's the hinge moment. That's true situational intelligence. He wasn't dressing to look fashionable. He was dressing to look accountable.
In that environment, cute, or the casual tech uniform, would have read as contempt. Staggering disrespect for the institution. Only formal could successfully signal, I understand how big this moment is.
So the principle is that formality isn't a fixed personality trait. It's a tool for matching the stakes.
Exactly. When the consequences increase, reputation, regulation, your job, the audience demands to see signals of order, seriousness, and respect for the process.
And this ties back to that internal shift to enclothed cognition.
It does. Research confirms that wearing more formal clothes tends to push people toward more abstract, big-picture thinking rather than getting stuck in the weeds. And it's mediated by this feeling of increased power or competence.
So when Zuckerberg put on that suit, he wasn't just signaling to Congress, he was flipping an internal executive switch for himself.
Priming his own brain for the kind of systemic thinking you need in a crisis. And we know he's conscious of this. Sources confirm he used this exact tactic years earlier, back in 2009.
During the recession.
During the depths of the global recession, he started wearing a tie to work every single day. A huge departure from his norm. And it was an explicit symbol to his company to signal seriousness and focused effort during a time of uncertainty. It's about dressing as a reminder of the moment you're in.
So the habit for you to build is to dress for the context and the stakes, not just your own comfort. Shifting your presentation to match the gravity of the moment shows real sophistication.
When the room gets serious, you must get formal.
Let's pivot now to subsection B, controlling the gaze, with Anna Wintour. She is a master of controlling her visual presentation.
Absolutely. She's defined by her signature barrier, the sharp bob haircut, and of course the dark sunglasses, which she wears even indoors. And she doesn't present them as style. She presents them as pure function.
I remember this quote. She called them a prop.
That's the one. She said, "They help me see and they help me not see. They help me be seen and not be seen. They are a prop." And using the word prop is key. It strips them of aesthetic pretense. It reveals them as a business tool for managing exposure.
She is the ultimate authority in an industry that runs on appearance and visual judgment, and yet she uses a physical barrier to strategically manage that exposure.
In that world, a flicker of her eyes could become a rumor, a judgment on a designer's collection. She controls the input the room gets from her.
And this is where we define formality not just as structure, but as a boundary.
Yes.
Yes.
Because in business, being cute or overly approachable comes with this unspoken, exhausting job description. You must be emotionally available.
You're expected to smile, to reassure, to perform warmth, to make everyone else comfortable.
It's a huge emotional tax when your actual job is to decide, to criticize, to hold an uncompromising standard.
So formality, or in Winter's case, a prop, is an active refusal of that emotional tax. It creates professional distance.
Absolutely. By creating a visual that protects her attention and reduces the demand for her to constantly perform warmth, she forces the room to engage exclusively with her role and her authority, not her accessibility. She's making herself readable for the right thing.
The room has to read competence, not cuteness. Authority, not availability.
The formality isn't distance for its own sake. It's the necessary space your authority needs to function without constant social interference.
Okay, that was a true deep dive. We've covered deleting friction, encoding defiance, neutralizing bias. Now, let's make this actionable. Based on these leaders, what are the systems and micro steps for adopting your own authority uniform?
First, we have to focus on building the system. This is all about reducing friction, channeling that Obama approach to energy conservation.
So let's start with the basics. Palette and silhouette. What does that look like in practice?
You need to pick a two-color authority palette and then just stick to it religiously, like Obama's blue and gray. You pick two core neutrals, black and navy, charcoal and camel, and you repeat them constantly. Repetition doesn't read as boring. It reads as intention.
And then standardizing the fit. This is the part people always miss.
Yes, standardize your silhouette. Pick one specific blazer shape that works for you, one cut of trousers. Then you buy multiples. The advice is, tailor once, win forever. You pay a professional once to get the fit perfect, and you eliminate that daily mental debate about whether your clothes look sloppy.
A perfect fit is non-negotiable for real formality, which means you have to invest your money in the right place.
Focus your money on structure before style. Spend your budget on that immaculate fit, on the weight of the fabric so it hangs with authority, and on high-quality finishing.
Clean shoes, a crisp press, a perfect hemline.
Exactly. Don't waste money on novelty details or frills or accessories that read fun before they read credible.
The end goal is to have an autopilot stack. You should be able to write your uniform formula in one line, like navy blazer plus white top plus charcoal trousers plus simple watch. No decisions, no apologies, just execution.
And once you have the system, you move to deploying the signal. This is where we take lessons from RBG and Eileen Carey. This is about controlling interpretation.
So you need to create one high-quality, memorable, but subtle signature formal marker.
This is not a huge, trendy statement necklace.
No. It should be a specific, well-made watch, a signature pen you always use, a consistent neckline, something repeatable, grown-up, and yours, but not showy. It's an accent mark on your formality.
And we really recommend you use the first 5 minutes rule. For any truly high-stakes moment, a negotiation, a pitch, a job interview dress, one full notch more formal than the baseline of that room.
Not so formal you look out of place.
No, but just enough that you look undeniably prepared and respectful of the stakes. You go one level above their expectation to communicate your confidence.
And that look has to be paired with your communication. You can't wear the uniform of authority and then speak like an apologetic novice.
The cues have to align. Pair formality with protocol. Use a role-first intro line. Don't start with small talk. Start with, I lead X at Y, and my goal today is Z.
And adopt a formal cadence.
A slightly slower pace, fewer qualifying words like just or maybe, and clear declarative sentences.
And practice the authority opener in meetings. You lead with the conclusion. The decision is X. We decided this because of Y. The next step is Z. You lead with command, and your uniform supports it visually.
Finally, let's wrap with the final audit, control. This is pulling in Wintour's boundary strategy. This is about managing the gaze.
The first step is simple. Audit your look. Go through your uniform, remove one element that reads as cute or youthful, a frill, a playful silhouette, an unnecessary color.
And then you replace that element with structure, simplicity, and weight. The goal is just to reduce the visual noise.
Then you create a repeatable template for your stakes moments. Don't wing it. Write down your specific uniform for pitches for board reviews. Pre-choose it the night before.
You eliminate that decision fatigue that Obama warned about. You reserve all your cognitive function for the content.
And finally, adopt the most powerful nonverbal habit of formality, the pause.
Yes. Practice a calm, deliberate pause after you speak, especially after you make a major point. Just let your words land. Don't rush to fill the silence with qualifiers or nervous chatter.
Formality demands respect for the word.
And silence is the structure that holds that respect. When you speak and then you intentionally pause, you force the room to absorb your statement and react to the content, not to your anxiety.
So at the end of the day, what does this all mean for you? The underlying lesson isn't about buying expensive clothes or following trends. It's about tactical communication.
It's about leveraging every tool you have. When you remove the noise of trivial choices and you ensure your look broadcasts serious intent, you create the space for your strategy to operate without interference.
And this really raises an important question for you to think about as you walk into your next high-stakes meeting.
If your appearance is always your opening argument, what are you letting the room read about your readiness before you even open your mouth? Are you inviting social interpretation, or are you enforcing focused authority?
Final thought for you to mull over as you prepare for your next big negotiation or your next career move. Make your outfit a system so your mind can be a weapon.